Hey, I was given a key for Ninjin Clash of Carrots. Pretty fun game overall. I do have some issues with it, but the concept is pretty good. It's also a great portable game as well. Now, I don't know how far I am into it. I was not able to find much information on this game at all. I thought the trailer looked pretty cool. I submitted a request on Keymailer and they just kind of gave it to me. It wasn't really much effort involved. I couldn't really find that many people streaming it. I haven't been able to find anybody playing the online co-op, so I pretty much went in blind aside from watching a couple minutes of gameplay footage. So basically it's like a combination between a beat-em-up, like a little bit of a mild shmup, and an endless runner with like kind of hunting game like customization mechanics. Now that sounds like a mouthful, and somehow it works for the most part. So you have quite a few customization slots. You have a mask, which as far as I know doesn't do anything. You have a ranged weapon. And then of course your melee weapon. Now these have a variety of effects, which is kind of, it's a good thing and a bad thing, because sometimes you can't tell like exactly what something does until you actually use it. But there are like a variety of classes. There's the heavy ones, which have obviously slower attack speed, but they do more damage. There's also the length of the blade matters. Like this one is kind of like a Chrysogrim. It does like pretty good damage and it attacks rapidly, but at the same time it has crap range and the crit on it is not that great. Go ahead and use this. So you also have these orbs, which allow you to get certain effects. I don't have that many unlocked. Right now I just have some generic ones like health, stamina, iframes, and combo count. And then finally you get these elemental stones, which give you a special attack when you fill up a meter. So you can buy all these things from the little corgi guy here. Now, I don't exactly know how the elemental attacks work. There's a lot of things in this game that aren't explained, which kind of goes against one of the main attractions of this game, which is a little built-in roguelike mode where you can actually get exclusive drops. You can't, like, tell what anything is until you actually pick it up, which goes into the problem a lot of roguelikes fall into, where you just have to memorize a bunch of stuff or have a guide open. But like I said, with this game, I could not find any guides at all, so you're gonna have to pretty much put like every single image of every item into memory before you'll really be able to effectively play that mode. Otherwise, you're just gonna be taking stuff blindly. And here's a bunch of the orbs he has for sale. This one gives you more money. This one raises the special attack, which is probably really good for bossing. There's a bunch of ranged weapons here as well. I'm gonna try this one. Alright, so I'll do a couple of the beginning levels so you guys can kind of see how it works. The online looks pretty good. I think you can just play co-op with anybody. I think you actually do get progress, but I'm not exactly sure because I haven't been able to find anybody actually playing. I don't know if the game just hasn't gotten much traction yet, or if it's just most people are playing it offline. It's probably a little bit of both. So you have a normal attack, like with this weapon you get like rapid attacks. You have a dash, which is invincible, pretty standard, you know, action game fare. You have a dash attack out of it as well, which kind of does multiple hits. And that's pretty much it. I do wish that there were more moves. Sometimes it feels like you just get bombarded and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it, unless you have a very specific build. I will say this game, you know, it looks cute and all. It's kind of got like that classic aesthetic to it where it looks like it's a game for babies, but the game actually gets quite difficult. You actually do need to grind to progress at some point. You need to find a good build, find items that synergize with each other, otherwise you're going to hit some roadblocks. I've already hit a couple roadblocks. I'm only like halfway through the second world. See, like, this weapon is pretty good for crowd control, but I can tell it's going to be garbage for bossing stuff. I'm currently stuck on a boss, and I've been doing some grinding to kind of get some more items to diversify my build. And I can already tell this is something that I'll have to... I already regret buying. I think the customization is probably the best part of this game. I think the combat could definitely use a little bit more variety. However, what sets this apart from like more traditional beat-em-ups is that there's like a lot of enemy variety. Pretty much every couple levels there's a new enemy being added to the game. So it kind of avoids the usual problem that kind of beat-em-ups kind of go into, where it's just like there's not enough enemies to keep things interesting, or the enemy design isn't good. A lot of the enemies have been pretty interesting so far. Like you have these guys that go get pissed off when you take off their helmets. There's the guys that explode on contact. There's chameleons. There's ghosts that like devour all your stamina and stuff. It's pretty cool. I've actually been laughing quite a bit at the cutscenes too. Like, they're not like super interesting to watch, but got some nice tongue-in-cheek kind of video game, you know, referential humor to it. Like one of the bosses you fight becomes a minion. Like he goes up to the evil king and he tells him that he lost, and the king gets pissed off and tells him that he's been demoted to a generic enemy. No, the cutscenes are actually worth watching, but for the sake of this video, we're just gonna skip them. So the gameplay loop is pretty simple. I mean, you pretty much just go through the levels. It's kind of like a, you know, a more simple game in that regard. But there's a lot to it in terms of the customization, the builds you can make. And it's just a shame there's no like real online resource that I was able to find that has like kind of content you would need to like kind of make a build without guessing. So I'll go ahead and I'll show the roguelike mode, and I'll show the problems with it. This mode is very addicting as it is, but I feel like it definitely needs a bit more polish. So you see at the bottom there, there's collected rewards, 1 of 10. I've only gotten to wave 18. Every 10 floors you get a unique item. So there's actually a pretty good incentive to keep playing. However, what sets this apart is you can't use any of your builds from the main game. Like, it actually is like a true roguelike in that you start with the same junk every time and you get different things. It's just the problem is that you can't tell what anything is. When you pick up the power-ups, there's no description for it at all, and there's no way to, like, as far as I know, let me check. I don't think there's a way to, like, actually see what the items do even after you pick them up. So it feels like a bunch of just guesswork. Yeah, there's no way to check what you got. I tend to strongly dislike when roguelikes with like lots of items just don't even give you an option to see what things do. In this game, you know, you don't even get the luxury of seeing what it does after you pick it up, so that's probably my biggest hurdle to playing this more, is that if I want to play this and get all the rewards and things like that, I would have to pretty much memorize everything, or just take things blindly, which is never fun, especially when there's no online resource to kind of mitigate having to memorize everything. Yeah, here you go. So you get 1 item every 3 waves. Well, I'll go ahead and show just how rough the the roguelike part of this mode is. I think it definitely needs some work, especially since, and like I said, the game is not easy. The difficulty curve like spikes pretty quickly, and you actually are expected to do grinding at some point to progress. But in order to do that, the most effective way is to go through this mode, or just play a level over and over. But since this has unique, like really good loot, it's actually better to try to go through this. But it's just not very accessible. So I actually know what these items do. The only one I would take is the boomerang, which is totally fine. You know, it's a roguelike, so it's not supposed to be good stuff all the time, but it hasn't been uncommon for me to get 3 items which I have no idea what they do, and just end up taking one blindly. Not really being able to make an intelligent decision because I haven't memorized every single item in the game. It's a pretty shitty seed because I didn't get a weapon. So all the money you get from this is persistent, meaning you get to keep it. So it's actually a pretty effective way to grind. At this point, the run's pretty much toast, so I'm just gonna rob that guy of his carrots. Also, you can't attack backwards normally. You have to use the dash attack, which is Y and A. Y and B, I forget what the Nintendo buttons are. Square and triangle. So that can kind of get a little awkward to get used to. Like, I only know what, like, one of these does. Anyway, this run's not very interesting, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. That's basically the gist of the game. I feel that it needs difficulty sliders to kind of make things a little easier. The game is not accessible at all. There's a lot of items. It's very hard to tell what they do until you get them. Like, you're not even told what the elements do until you, like, actually see a random tooltip when you die. So that's another thing that's not very clear. The roguelike mode, as fun as it sounds on paper, is greatly held back by just the amount of like pure sheer memorization you would have to do to be good at it. And there's a pretty steep difficulty curve, so you are encouraged to grind through this mode, but a lot of the other like aspects of the game kind of go against that. There's nothing they couldn't fix with patches. I went on the Steam forums for this after I got the code for them from Keymailer, and some people were suggesting that as well, so maybe they will address it later on. It's definitely a pretty grindy game. Like I said, your moveset is pretty limited, so a lot of your effectiveness is going to be dependent on your build, which I think is cool. You know, you actually do have a lot of control over what you go into, fighting with, but at the same time, there's just like so much stuff, and it can be kind of soul-crushing to spend a bunch of money on something or pick it up in the roguelike mode and find out it's garbage or it doesn't synergize with your build at all, and then have to do more grinding. I think it would be nice if they had, like, on the start menu here, they had like an encyclopedia or something where you could see all the items you picked up in the past, or if they had a tooltip when you pick up the items in the roguelike mode, so that you can actually make more educated decisions. I think for a game like this, which doesn't have a whole lot of traction or hype around it, they need to make sure that people can find all this information inside the game instead of looking for a guide that doesn't exist. Well, other than that, the game is fun. I've been playing it for a couple hours for the past few days. I just got around to doing an overview now. It is available on PS4, Xbox One, Steam, and Switch. The Switch version, I have noticed some performance issues, but pretty much only when the screen is completely full of things going on. The game can get pretty hectic, so it's not surprising that in portable mode it does hitch a little bit, but for the most part it's pretty stable. It's definitely not unplayable. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.